Well, Namrata Brar is in Davos covering the World Economic Forum for us. Let's just cut across to her very quickly. We've heard from the RBI governor and the finance minister, Namrata. The situation doesn't seem particularly exciting right now as far as India is concerned. What's the buzz in Davos on the India story?
The mood has turned into one of disappointment here in Davos over the last 24 hours. Actually, things are worsening, not getting better. The India story, well, is divided. 50% of the camp still feels that India will outperform the other BRIC economies or the emerging markets, given that its inherent economy is stable. But 50% and an increasing larger group believes that India cannot be immune to a crisis and it will suffer with the rest of them. But I've got a special guest who's going to give us much more perspective. Nitin Nohria is the Dean of the Harvard Business School. Dean Nohria, big sense of despondency right now. Do you feel it here in Davos?
So I feel anxiety more than despondency, but there's certainly a fair amount of anxiety that you experience in terms of what headwinds in the global economy. Everybody believes that growth in the global economy will flatten, Chinese growth being lowered, the possibility that China might have to devalue the yuan and the reverberation that that will have on every other country that then competes with China for exports, the sense that oil prices are going to be very low. Of course, that creates for countries like India and net importers of oil a boom, but still it creates uncertainty. The crisis in the Middle East seems to worry a lot of people in terms of what that implies for geopolitics in the world. I think that's another source of great anxiety. People remain hopeful that maybe America will continue to grow, but people worry whether all these headwinds might cause America to slow down as well. Interestingly, India is actually one of the places where at least there's some positive conversation. I agree with you that it's not that everybody feels positive, but more people than not, even the people that I met here who are not Indian, tend up feeling that maybe this is one bright spot, at least in the emerging markets.
Right. But the RBI governor yesterday, Raghuram Rajan, made some interesting comments, Dean Nohria. He said that we are living in a make-believe world. These are fantasy instruments that we are talking about. And post-2008, central bankers have responded with so much stimulus that the markets and the economies are used to it, and what is real and what is not in terms of value of assets now is greatly exaggerated. Would you agree that we are living in a make-believe world and the real value of financial instruments and assets is not what it looks like?
So I think that when you have the degree of quantitative easing that has happened and interest rates essentially in a global sense virtually go to zero, asset prices inflate, because if you have a discount rate that's close to zero, you can inevitably asset prices inflate. So, in fact, Ray Dalio, who is one of the most remarkable people in the macroeconomy, was saying, we've thought about the monetary policy as being something that you work around the business cycle, which is 5 or 6 years. But maybe there's a monetary policy cycle unto itself in a global economy. And this is a very new idea, but are we at the stage where, in fact, central banks will get less and less able to have any influence on the global economy? So his feeling is that the capacity for central banks to see themselves as major instruments of growth in the global economy and of driving growth is going to be curtailed in the next few years, and maybe fiscal policy will end up becoming a more important thing for us to think about.
But Dean Nohria, that is a huge statement, and that will have tremendous repercussions on how we view crises in times to come. So when central banks don't have the tools that the market is now used to in the post-2008 world, everyone expects central bankers to come and rescue us every time there's a problem.
I think I agree with you. I agree, and that's why I think that there's so much anxiety, because people feel like the instruments that we all got used to, which drove us out of the 2008 crisis, which was largely central bankers around the world in a coordinated way providing quantitative easing that created more credit in the market. So people feel like there's all this cash that's now sitting on the sidelines again. I was at a meeting that BlackRock organized this morning in which they say, there's no shortage of cash in the global economy today, but it's just that people are anxious, they're not putting it to work. They're more happy to sit in cash than actually put money to work because they're not sure about what asset prices actually look like. So the point that you're making, that the confidence that we have in asset prices in a world in which quantitative easing and those instruments seem to have run their course is a real issue for us to worry about right now.
Okay, so quite a lot of helplessness, and I'll ask you one final question about the India story once again, and Prime Minister Modi in particular. So what I'm sensing from Davos is on camera, obviously, the eye in the bricks is standing and shining, but on ground, CEOs are very uncertain about 2016. They're saying implementation of reforms is a key problem. Now, according to you, and you have the ear to many global businesses and big financial investors, what are they saying about this implementation of reforms, this Prime Minister Modi's magical influence on the business community? Is it there or is it waning?
I think people are still very hopeful, but they hope that the 2016 year will be a year in which some of the things that have been put in motion will actually get implemented, whether it's a broadband infrastructure, whether it's GST. I know that that's like a hot topic that never seems to have anything other than controversy. But if you look at global CEOs, I think the appetite that global CEOs have to continue to invest in India is very high. Now, FIIs and people who are actually just in the business of asset allocation, they're all withdrawing money from emerging markets. So we might see capital outflows, which has led to the decline in the stock market. But if you actually look at global Fortune 500 companies and their appetite to invest in India, it remains strong, but they want to see some signs from the government that says the business environment is going to improve. Some of the ideas and thoughts that Prime Minister Modi and his cabinet have had will actually get implemented. So I still think that there is optimism about the Prime Minister, there is optimism about India, and it feels to me that companies, FDI is still standing on the sidelines waiting to invest if India makes some positive moves this year.
Okay, on a scale of 1 to 10, how worried are you this year, 2016?
8.
All right, that's close enough. Thank you so much, Dean Nohria. That's a high reading coming in from the Dean of Harvard Business School, and you got a comprehensive picture of what he feels the global trends look like. So India still relatively okay, but the global market is looking very uncertain. And crucially, a big statement coming in that a helplessness of the global markets being reflected, that there is no one who can be their savior, as central bankers themselves admit that their instruments are limited. Back to you.